Welcome to the Tikit demo series. In today's session, we're going to focus in on how Tikit can manage a new hire process in your business. The Tikit is a service desk that can manage any business process across IT, facilities, telecom, HR, legal, and/or finance. But specifically with a new hire process and what we're going to illustrate today, what we're going to see is Tikit's ability to initiate a new hire process from an end user submitting a form, that submission triggering off a business workflow. We call these business workflows life cycles that will have phases of governance to control the things that are needed in sequence to bring on a new hire. In my example today, we're going to have an approval phase, then an account provisioning phase, and then a hardware provisioning phase. We also have the ability to send certain tasks up to Power Automate to automate some of the repetitive things you may be doing in your business. In my example today, we're going to create an Entra account for my new hire. But you can automate anything with Power Automate, and it becomes pretty limitless with your ability to integrate into Power Automate. So on the left-hand side here, we have Adele. She's my end user, and she'll be initiating and submitting our new hire process. And on the right-hand side here is Diego. He's my agent, and he'll be receiving that new hire process and then working through the different elements to highlight how that would work across Tikit on the agent side. So Adele needs to initiate a new hire process. So she's going to come over to Tikit Virtual Agent and let Tikit Virtual Agent know she needs to onboard an employee. Tikit Virtual Agent is going to search our service catalog, and we know this is a service request, and we know that this requires a form to be filled out for our new hire. So we're going to present to Adele a form for her to fill out. Now, as Adele is filling out this form, she is going to be telling this new hire process different parameters around this specific type of new hire, and is going to be influencing and changing the business workflow for this type of new hire. So what I mean by that is, if I choose Department of Operations, what you're going to see happen is in my account provisioning phase, we're going to dynamically add a task to set up an operational account, because in my business, anyone that's in operations requires just an additional account for that particular type of business profile. As I continue to travel down this new hire and I get to the hardware area, if I were to choose mobile phone, we're telling this business workflow, this life cycle, that we need to have a mobile phone. And in my hardware provisioning phase, we're going to dynamically add a task to set up a mobile phone. Now, when Adele submits this service request will be created, and service request number 2627 will be submitted. And what you're going to see on Diego's side is that service request is assigned to the HR group. In my business, all new hire processes are managed by HR. But again, we have this life cycle that has phases of governance, and HR and facilities and IT are all working in concert to bring on this employee as this new hire process progresses. Now, the other thing that's happening here is in phase one, I have an approval phase. And when I click submit on that new hire, in my business, anyone who submits a new hire process, the employee's manager needs to be the approver of that particular new hire. And what we're doing is we're dynamically understanding who submitted the request. We're going up to Microsoft Entra to grab the employee's manager out of that metadata, and then we're dynamically adding the approval to the approval phase. Now, Adele's manager is Diego, just so I can containerize this presentation. And what you're seeing here is Adele's made aware that in order to move this process forward, Diego needs to approve this request to get to the next phase of this particular new hire process. Now, on the right-hand side here, we saw it come in, but I didn't highlight it. Diego received a notification in Tikit Virtual Agent asking him to approve this particular new hire. Now, when I click approve here, a couple of things are going to happen. The first is we're going to move to phase two in my business process after this approval moves forward. Now, phase two is my account provisioning phase. And in this phase, I have a couple of things happening. There's some manual tasks happening. There's also a Power Automate task happening. Now, my account for Sean Ashton has already been created, and we're going to highlight that in the web experience, but there's a bunch of different tasks that are happening in phase two, One of them is the Power Automate task to be sent up to create my account, and that's actually already occurred. So what we're going to do now is we're going to travel over to the Ticket Agent portal to show a little bit of a different perspective on this new hire. So this is the Ticket Agent portal. It's a complimentary place where agents can work inside of the ticket service desk next to the team's experience. And you'll see here ticket 2627 was created, and we can further look at that ticket here. Now that ticket has that life cycle, also has a form that was filled out. And I want to start at the top here. So this life cycle for this new hire has 3 phases. Phase 1 is that approval, which was already completed. We're now sitting in phase 2. Phase 2 has 4 tasks in it, 2 that are manual, that are always there. Here's that operational account setup that was dynamically added because I chose for this employee to be in operations. And then we have this Power Automate task sitting here. You already see it marked as successful. I'm going to come back to it, but that's because my Entra account was already created. And then phase 3 here is my hardware provisioning phase. Setting up a computer happens for every employee, but because we chose mobile phone, we dynamically added this cell phone task here to this particular phase here. Now, if I go back to my account provisioning phase, I want to highlight just a few things here. The first is there are 3 manual tasks. One of them is assigned to Diego, who I'm currently logged in as. And if I went to go ahead and complete this task, that task will be completed, but we won't move to phase 3 until Alex comes in here and completes his task to move this process forward. Now, we also have this Power Automate task, and what this gives us the ability to do is to send one or multiple tasks up to Power Automate for any type of business workflow. So in this example, I'm creating an Entra account because every new hire needs a new user account. But this is pretty limitless. I could set up Teams access, I could set up mailboxes, I could set up access to different groups, things of that nature. In terminations, I could disable accounts. If someone's asking for access to a team, I can have an approval occur before that team access is given. If someone needs a new team to be created, I can govern that and control that via an approval, then go create the teams itself and then notify the end user when that's actually created. It's very limitless, and I just want to highlight and pivot on that for a moment. Now, the end result of this is in that Power Automate task is that actual account was created. So what I want to do is a couple of things here. One, I want to go show that account so everyone can just see that account was be created. And then what I want to do is I want to jump into Power Automate to highlight how this all happened, what happened behind the scenes. So how did this dynamically shift? And then based upon the form being submitted, and then how do we create that account there, which is very easy in Power Automate. So they'll go over to Microsoft Entra and go over to the users area. What you're going to see here is my list of users, and then somewhere down here, we're going to see Sean Ashton's account's been created. And that happened because of that new hire process. And again, that didn't happen until that approval occurred. And once it did, we kicked it off within seconds to create that account there. Now I want to jump into Power Automate to highlight how some of this stuff works behind the scenes. So if I go over to Microsoft Power Automate, Tikit itself has a full connector library in Power Automate. And what that allows for us to do is leveraging our slew of triggers and leveraging our actions, we can create any flow inside of Power Automate to manage any business workflow and automate things that you may be doing manually in your business. I had 2 flows that were actually influencing that particular new hire, and I'm going to walk through both of them. So the first one is the approvals and task evaluation flow. If I go edit that, get rid of Copilot there. What you're going to see here is the flow that actually managed that process. So what I'm doing effectively is I'm listening for when that onboarding new hire is initiated. Once I have that, I'm leveraging Power Automate to sequence out how to shift that life cycle. There's a couple of things I want to highlight within this flow. The first is I'm getting the employees manager via a Microsoft Power Automate action. That action happens out of the box, and you can grab that and get the employees manager here. I'm then, based upon that manager, adding an approval to a phase. So that's that phase one. So if I look here, I'm saying in the onboarding lifecycle for the phase approved new hire, I'm making the approver the employee's manager. I'm also giving it some details, the title and some additional details. And then as I travel further down this process, I'm evaluating the form and I'm asking the form which profile was selected. Was it accounting, which would add an ERP account? Was it development, which would add a DevOps account? In my example, I chose operations, which would add an operational account setup. And what we're doing, just like the approval, we're specifying the lifecycle of onboarding. In the account provisioning phase, we want to set up an operations account and we want to statically assign that to Alex. The previous example, we dynamically leveraged the requester's manager. This one, we're just going to assign this to Alex specifically. Another thing I want to note here is that I'm choosing to add one additional account. You could add one or multiple tasks here. This is just an example of what's possible. And the last thing I want to highlight here is the cell phone setup. So you'll see here that if I chose mobile phone, I'm going to add in the onboarding lifecycle and the hardware provisioning phase, setting up a cell phone, and I'm also going to assign that to Alex because he takes care of my hardware in my business. So that's the dynamically shifting the lifecycle. Let's go over to the setting up of the Entra account. Now, what's happening here is I am listening for when that Power Automate task in that lifecycle goes active. So after the approval phase hits, we go to phase two, which is account provisioning. And what we're saying here is in the lifecycle of onboarding, in the account provisioning phase, when my setup Entra account is activated, doing a couple of things around getting some ticket data, but effectively what I'm ultimately doing is leveraging a Microsoft Power Automate Entra action here to create the user based upon the form elements that were filled out. So first name, last name, and I'm creating that based upon those form elements. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back into that particular task that initiated this Entra account creation, and we're going to mark it as successful once it successfully completes. And again, the idea here is that you can manage and create any business process in your business to control sequences of phases, we call them life cycles, to be able to allow for different teams to work together to do things. And in this example, it's bringing on a new hire process, but as mentioned earlier, you do terminations, controlling teams access or team creation, effectively anything across the business. Really hope you enjoyed today's session. And if you have any questions, please email team@tikit.ai.